being really good at your sacred no. You can say it with kindness. Oh, no, thank you. And your hell yes. Because that means you've got to take ownership of moving your life in the direction that you want it. And not everybody's going to like it, understand it, or respect it. But if you really want an up-leveled, thriving life, you have to know yourself, know your truth, and be able to say yes or no, even when other people are throwing a tantrum or throwing shade or judgment or hating on you, because it's not their life to live, it's yours. And you get to stop giving that the keys to the driver's seat to anybody else but yourself.
2, 1, 0.
Hi, welcome to Stellar Life Podcast. How are you doing? I'm so happy that you're here because today we're going to talk a little bit about shadow work. We're going to talk about reclaiming your power, opening your heart, setting healthy boundaries with your friends and family in your personal life, and also as a facilitator. And my guest is a very special, unique woman who has an incredible spiritual retreat in Sedona where all the vortexes are. And we had a wonderful conversation. Anahata Ananda, for over 2 decades, has supported tens of thousands through heart-centered, empowering, transformative experiences. She shared a little bit about those experiences and how you too can experience a breakthrough for yourself. And now, without further ado, on to the show. Hi, Anahata, and welcome to Stellar Life Podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. It's an honor to come and dive into some juicy topics with you today.
Yes, and then you're in Sedona, which is a magical place. So you're bringing the magic with you already.
Yes. I love being based here, and our sanctuary healing center is based here. So it's the perfect destination to come and heal, awaken, expand, ignite, accelerate, connect, rejuvenate. So there's definitely a lot of magic here in the vortexes and the beautiful red rocks. I love it here.
What's your sanctuary like?
The center that we have here in Sedona is called Shine, the Sanctuary for the Soul. So this is where we have world-class facilitators and practitioners offering sessions, readings, workshops, sound healing, breathwork, trainings, retreats. We just finished a men's retreat. We had right before that a women's retreat, and there's training for hands-on healing modalities and breathwork, Shamangelic Breathwork facilitator training. So people come from around the world just to come and have their healing, their heart awakening, their spiritual connection, or to accelerate, their purpose and their path.
That's amazing. So it's like Aslan in California?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's right here in West Sedona, conveniently located to everything else. So this is a wonderful getaway if you are going through something, a breakup, a challenge, some, big life change, loss. So if you're really having like a core wound or a core trauma, it's a great place to come and get supported to help move through that. Or if you're just a seeker and you want more tools and you want to accelerate and expand or amplify or attract, it's great for that too. And then if you're a light worker seeking a place to learn different modalities to level up so that as a coach, as a healer, as a teacher or a trainer, that you have more tools in your kit to accelerate healing and transformation for your clients. So there's a whole range of things that we love to offer.
Yeah, it's nice. And it's nice that it's near all the vortexes of Sedona. And it's magical. I've been there once or twice. I think just once. And it was amazing. And Sedona has the best crystal shops ever.
Yes, we have a sweet little boutique, and I hand select everything: crystals, jewelry, different medicine bags and sage wands and silk kimonos and hats. And so we have a sweet little boutique there as well. And about the vortexes, The energy here is an amplifier because of the ancient land, and there's crystals in the soil and the vortexes. It's really an energy amplifier, so it helps to accelerate things, accelerates healing, awakening, connecting to the divine, inspiration. People come here to write their books. People come here to get over an ex. People come here to find and reconnect to themselves again. And the vortexes are really accelerators for that process. That's why I love being here.
Yeah, me too. I love Sedona. Well, I wonder what, like, how do people know that the vortexes are there? Like, how do they measure the energy? How do you know? How do they know this is a sacred ground?
Yeah. So they actually have a meter that detects the electrical current that's coming out. Just like in our body, we have different vortexes known as chakras, right? And so we have more energy coming out around our heart as an organ, or our adrenals, or our sexual gland, sexual organs, as well as our pineal and our pituitary and our thyroid. There's more energy and electrical current coming out of those places than our elbow, and it can be measured. There's a, so there's, people think, oh, there's probably like 10 or 15. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and thousands of vortexes here. They're just all over the place. And so there are these spiraling electrical currents. And then when there's also minerals in the soil, because the land is so old, and when there's crystals in the soil, that amplifies the electricity, because those are both conductors. So it's like nowhere else in the world is there this much electrical current.
And what is the electrical? Because I know that when you do grounding and you put your feet on the ground, because we are electrical, it's called grounding, and we're actually grounding our own electricity into the ground. And when we put our feet on the earth, we barefoot on the earth, not with shoes. Um, then we connect to all living beings on the planet. We can, if we want, everybody that steps on this earth. Now, what does being around the vortex does to your body?
So it amplifies wherever something is blocked. It's going to want to help it to move.
Mm.
So if you're exhausted and tired, it's going to make you sleepy so that you actually rest.
Oh, wow.
If it's time to bring in inspiration, like a book or poetry or song, you might not be able to sleep because you'll be, really amplifying the creative flow. If there's sadness that you've been avoiding, or emotions that you've been oppressing, it's going to invite that to flow. So this is a great place to heal core wounds, which is one of my favorite, ways to hold space for somebody's vulnerability and their trauma, so they can get out of the cycle that keeps repeating in unconscious relationships, or codependency, or limiting beliefs, so that they can actually get at the core issue of it. And so Sedona is going to help that energy move, because it's more accessible, and it's going to be a little bit more amplified. So it's like working with another facilitator and a practitioner being here in Sedona.
Right. So Einstein said, and this is not a direct quote, that when an object goes in one direction, it will keep going in the same direction unless an outside interference will help it shift. And even a little shift will change the course of that object. Now that is true to anything that happens in our lives. Sometimes we need the external help. Sometimes we need, because we need to get out of the frame, because we're in the picture of our life. We're in our own movie, and sometimes we definitely need to physically leave and go somewhere else and be with someone that can be that disrupting force for good, for us to break through. And I know that with my own personal journey, and definitely can raise my hand and say I'm a seeker, because I've been through hundreds, if not thousands, of workshops and seminars, big and small, throughout my life. And there were so many. There were a few major ones that really helped me heal in very, very difficult times in my life. And actually, I just came back from a women retreat with Sheila Kelly in was Indian Wales, near Palm Springs. And that, man, I came back and I had a complete shift of energy. There is something about the desert. But even though we were like doing deep work inside the convention center for like literally from 9 a.m. till, I don't know, 7 p.m. Uh, but there is something energetic about the desert, even when it's not Sedona, that is so healing.
Yeah, this catalyst that you're talking about is it. Sometimes it takes a trauma, a drama, a breakup, a diagnosis. Sometimes it's overwhelm, or a career being chaotic, or a loss of someone or something that kind of creates that catalyst, not only to look at what issues are coming up in that experience, but also the other issues that got stuffed and ignored from earlier in life, because we didn't have the tools, we weren't ready, we didn't know how, there wasn't the support system, um, or there wasn't a reason to upgrade or shift. And so that's where I love meeting people in that place of, wow, I've got to make a shift. Or I didn't even know that was there. I didn't realize that I was part of this pattern that kept repeating. And so, having been doing this for 23, 4 years now, it's such an honor and privilege to help walk people through that shadow work and help them to find their light again, their truth again, their voice again, their identity again, and the shift, the awakening that happens, the transformation that happens, especially with a multiple day retreat. We just had our women's retreat a few weeks ago, and the depth we went in around, sexual trauma and core healing, women finding their voice again, and overcoming, being the accommodator, being learning how to have clear boundaries so that they're not enabling others, or being depended upon in a way that isn't healthy for either person, whether that's a child, whether that's a partner, whether that's a colleague or a parent, is really being able to have those clear energy lines so that you can come back to yourself again, so that there is safety and integrity and self-respect about how I need to protect this, I need to love this, I need to respect and honor and own my authenticity and my value and my worth. It's not going to come from anybody else. That's my responsibility to know that, protect it, and take care of it. And that process of reclaiming that is so valuable, so inspiring, and it creates so much space, light, and freedom from that place to heal the core wounds, and at the same time putting new beliefs, new tools, and new awareness in. That's where the real acceleration happens, is when you're working on both sides of the equation: the release, the surrender, and letting go of what isn't yours, what isn't true, or is way outdated, and then upgrade to what is mine, what is true, and what is really part of my soul's calling, because that really creates a massive shift. And when you have those kinds of transformational shifts, everything in life starts to change. And that's where it gets, really exciting. So I love doing that deeper multiple day work. But a lot of times people will come here just for, a private retreat where they're ready to work right now, and they can't wait until the retreat that's happening 2 months, and they need to get at it right now because their life is on hold until they get it sorted. And so people will come to do a private tailored retreat with many different modalities and practitioners kind of tailoring an experience based on what somebody needs. And yeah, there's something magical about the desert here, and the land, because it really is working at a subtle and not so subtle way to amplify and accelerate the timeline of healing and awakening,
Yeah.
and spiritual connection as well.
Yeah. So you talked about shadow work. What's your definition of shadow work, and in which modalities you use to heal people?
Oh, so many. What I call shadow work, and this is the reason why we named Shine, is because this is about shining a light on what is obstructing your light. And it's really finding your inner radiance. And you've got to go back and do the work to see, where is there a part of me that got lost in that trauma? Where did I shut down my voice? Where did I hide my light because it wasn't safe to be me, because somebody judged me, or it wasn't liked, they rejected me, or they left me? or they ridiculed me. And so I started to learn how to, I dimmed my light, or from this trauma, whether it was physical or sexual or an abandonment issue. And some of us have big traumas where it's one big one or a couple big ones. And some of us have these little things that erode our light, our confidence, our sense of self over time. And so the formula to uncover that and reclaim that is a little bit different for everybody. One of my favorite modalities is Shamangelic Breathwork. And that way we get to go into the energy body and the emotional body that doesn't lie. It holds memory of trauma or pain or sadness or resentment or anger. And we give permission for the throat to express, for the body to shake, for the emotions, whether it's watery emotions like grief or sadness from a loss or a hurt, or if it's fiery emotions like resentment, anger, and when it's oppressed for a long time, rage. So we create a safe space to release those and move through it so that the cellular memory, the energy body, and the emotional body can come back to neutral instead of from this contracted space where we're not in alignment, making life decisions from that place when we're not in alignment and not feeling whole, we're not feeling safe, then we're not going to make decisions that align with our highest and best self. So when we can release those traumas and release that emotions, now we start to inform, what do we do now? What tools can I learn to maintain my sense of self? Where can I identify what relationships I tend to self-abandon to please or to avoid conflict? So then we start to look at where are those places within one's life that we tend to lose ourselves, and become aware of those patterns and give tools for different ways of handling it next time.
Right. And you mentioned shamanic breath work. There are so many ways of doing breath work. And it's becoming extremely popular, and the new it's kind of like the new popular thing. What's the difference between regular breathwork practices, or not? Nothing is regular, right? When it comes to breathwork, it's all sacred. Um, but other modalities, and also when you do the breathwork, do they just lay down and then like make a sound, or do they also eventually walk around, move their bodies, and express their emotions?
There's many, many modalities of breath work, and anything that is breathing, a breathing exercise, is actually breath work. So in the yogic traditions, there are a lot of breathing exercises that are to calm the mind, to open for greater meditation, to connect to spirit, to balance the left and right hemispheres of the brain. And there's all of these, what they would call pranayamas. These are breathing techniques that are for balancing and calming and detoxification. What I'm talking about, and this is specifically called Shamangelic breathwork, is using the breath, deep inhales and exhales, a lot of hyperoxygenation to start to bring up the subconscious memories from the back of the brain, because hyperoxygenation does that. And it's really important is there's not all breathwork facilitators are the same. Not all offer the same type of support or the same kind of journey. I personally feel like that connecting with each person, so they're really getting their own private healing journey that is tailored based on what they need. Like I just did this breath work for 28 different people. There was a couple other facilitators, and 28 different people. Now, I can have a soundtrack and do the drum and the rattle, but they have 28 different issues. And Shamangelic breathwork will then go and weave in with each person individually to help them. Maybe this person needs to release rage, and to support them releasing primal anger that has been oppressed for probably decades. And then to turn around to somebody else that might be really just having the loss of a loved one recently, or a breakup needs to grieve, and to be able to hold space, not standing at the front of the room, but actually in their space with healing energy, different modalities to help, hands-on healing, emotional release, guided visualizations, touch, and support that really helps that person through their individual journey. And I think that's what's different about Shamangelic breathwork, is that everybody gets tailored to what they need. A lot of breathwork practitioners, and even a lot of people are doing this online, where they're not going to be in your field at all. They'll be, at the front of the room with a great soundtrack or a musical instrument, or virtual. And there can still be a lot of release and breakthroughs. And I think where it's really accelerated is when you get that tailored support, which has a different level of skill to be able to read somebody's energy field and to move in with mastery to seamlessly support and accelerate their transformation and leave them more whole after, and support with integration, because you can move a lot of energies in these more intense modalities that can release decades and decades of pain, grief, and anger and energetic density. You can relieve stuff that you've been holding from relatives, your bloodline, other people, past lovers. So that's quite efficient. And that's one of my favorite modalities. And so that's why, I've been facilitating that for 23 years, and been doing the facilitation for the training for that. I take a very, very small group of individuals and I do a 2-week intensive for those that really want to learn not only breathwork techniques, but hands-on emotional release, chakra balancing, trauma-informed transformational techniques. And how do you pull back somebody's energy from a past situation, and how to help them reclaim it and teach them how to maintain it. Because it's only going to last if the individuals know how to continue holding their energy clear. Otherwise, it just keeps repeating.
Right. How do you, as a facilitator, keep the boundaries between you and somebody was now releasing, childhood sexual trauma, or something like, some people's traumas are massive, and actually just living in this world, like, and watching the news, it's a secondary trauma. um so if you were just like, if you would deal with someone who's going through a lot of pain, a lot of anger, what do you call on to facilitate this energy, and how do you keep your boundaries?
It's the first course in my training. It's the first course, clear boundaries. It's so important. And to understand whether it's with a client or a family member or a lover, this is mine and this is not mine. And really, really understanding this is mine, this is not mine. And from that place of, I'm not here to fix it, solve it, own it. I'm just here to hold space as this person processes their emotions. I don't have an opinion about anger or rage. It doesn't scare me if somebody's emotional, because I see it as a valuable process for their healing and for their transformation. So boundaries get crossed when you have a judgment that something is bad or wrong or scary or evil or intense. And I'm like, it just is. It's part of this human being expressing, and their fear, their anger, their pain is part of their humanness. And so understanding that and being able to see it through a compassionate space, then the heart can come forward and say, how can I support you, sweetheart? Is it to, is it to provide a safe space for your head to land here and just weep and weep and weep? And I've had here, tears, thousands of people's tears, like on my shoulder, on my face. And it's just such a beautiful privilege just to be like, oh dear, just let yourself cry. It's okay. And also to help, like somebody really deeply primally expressed, because I've been through that and I know how liberating it is. And it doesn't scare me. It doesn't it doesn't come into my body because it's not mine. I have very clear boundaries. This is their anger and their rage from another experience that has absolutely nothing to do with me. So I can move even closer to it and hold space for it, and then be clear to turn and then support somebody else's sadness. And it's a skill that I've developed over decades as well. I mean, it's not a beginner level skill. And that's why the training isn't 2 days or one day. It takes a lot of practice.
Right. So I'm a coach and a hypnotherapist, and I take people through very deep processes that last 2 to 3 hours, just intense. Me, and one person, and I have the capacity to hold a lot, and I have. And when I did Strength Finder, I found out that my first strength is empathy, and my third one sounded like empathy. So within I have a lot of empathy, and it's been at least a decade and a half of me trying to um, still work on my boundaries, and mostly I am successful. And sometimes I will have a session that, there is so much energy moving that I'll just have to go to sleep after the session, and the whole day I'll be like, oh, so tired. Um, it doesn't happen all the time, but when it's like something extreme, sometimes it happens. And I understand you have to gotta put the bubble on, and as a coach or a therapist, you just kind of like dip your finger in their energy, but you don't take all of it. And maybe you can share some tools for me and the audience of how to put those boundaries on.
Well, and I do a workshop on this online. There's one coming up in a few weeks. So that's a great thing to tune in virtually if people can't come to Sedona. And so check the Shine Sedona calendar, because I do a 2 hour workshop on boundaries, because sometimes that is, for those listening, maybe it's not a client, but it's a loved one that is dancing with addiction. For some people listening, how do I have clear boundaries with my partner? Because they're going through this challenge or they're having stress at work. How do I keep that separate? But it's the same process of how do I hold space for a client and not take on what isn't mine? And it's this really clear: this isn't mine, this is theirs. When we start to move into their energy field saying, well, this is a problem I'm now feeling, then I know I didn't have a clear boundary, and now I'm feeling their pain, or I'm feeling their fear, or I'm feeling their trauma. Uh-oh, I took on what isn't mine. So right there in that moment, I know this isn't mine, and I need to give the issue or the pain back to them, because I don't run their energy through my body ever at all. Never. I bring in light through to me and I send it out, but nothing goes past this barrier to come into me. So if I know my space, this is my truth, this is my light, this is my pain, these are my challenges, because I also don't want to let any of that seep into a lover, a friend, a child, because a lot of times we care so much about other people, then we leak our judgment or our pity or our discomfort with their process, their pain, their addiction. And that's us crossing the boundary into their space, bringing our judgment or our pain that, God, I wish this would stop, or this is horrible, or this is terrible. So I maintain a neutrality, that it's not bad or wrong, because in the third eye, the ability to see any pain or any suffering or any trauma or any addiction as part of the soul's journey, then I know it's necessary, even if my human eyes and my human brain cannot make sense of why would a child attract this trauma? What is going on here? Like, my human brain will never be able to make sense of some of the things that I have witnessed in client sessions. And believe me, I've been doing this for, 24 years full time. I've
Yeah, you handled a lot.
I've really held space for a lot, yeah, beyond what you could imagine. And when the third eye looks at it, it sees, okay, this is the classroom that this soul is learning. This is the classroom that if there's other people involved, like somebody that was creating the pain and suffering, that they too have pain and suffering. And so I have had to get out of my human judgment because it's all over the place. Like, hey, you shouldn't do that, and that's not right. And that doesn't belong in those spaces. That doesn't belong in those spaces. It does not get to exist there. So I get to stay in the third eye that says, let me see this from the bigger lens that, oh, this divorce happened in this way because there is a transformation, an awakening, a different path, a tool, a process, an experience that their soul has chosen. So there's no place for me to judge it as wrong or bad. As soon as I go into wrong or bad, I've crossed the boundary. So maintaining neutrality, and which is hard to do, let's say, as a mom when your son is going through an addiction. And that's one of the things that I'll be working with families that are working with somebody that has bipolar or that has an addiction, whether it's a partner, a child, or a family member, that says, this is your space, this is your energy. And the judgment and the fear and the worry is actually a boundary you're crossing, making their energy more challenging because they have to deal with your guilt and your judgment and your shame. And it's like, I realized that in the past, my worry in the form of love, my judgment in the form of you shouldn't be doing this, my own discomfort with somebody else's choices made their burden heavier. And I realized I'm the one crossing the boundaries here. I want to be able to love without imposing my judgment or my discomfort, and to learn that when you are having those feelings of being uncomfortable with somebody else's choices, then that's what you need to process. Like, if I'm uncomfortable with a client's choices, I've got to be like, hey, I'm not in neutrality right now. I'm not in neutrality right now. I need to shift immediately because then I'm bringing my stuff through my filter into the session and it does not belong here. It inhibits me then from being a clear conduit for impartial, the ability to bring impartial energy. Not caring, absolutely caring, but clear and clean. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. And do you do any like a morning ritual or prayer that you do in order to keep your energy clear? And or also before session? Because I know before we started this, and we had this a little conversation before we started, and your intention was that whoever's listens, that this information will land well and they will get what they need, which was beautiful. I love that. What do you do in the morning to clear your energy, to put on your boundaries, and maybe you can share a technique on how you do that?
Yeah, I think it starts as a daily practice and then it just becomes how I am. I always, anytime I am going into a breathwork ceremony, anytime I'm going into a retreat, anytime I'm going into a client session, anytime I'm going into teaching or training, I always ground. Let me clear out any frenetic busyness, this issue that has my mind running. It doesn't belong here. So I ground and I'm like, let me pull back my energy from any places that it shouldn't be so that I can be fully present here. And so that's a breathing, just like aware that, okay, yeah, I am still kind of spinning about this issue. But if I'm about to facilitate, I've got to pull it in so that I can be fully present and focused with this experience, because there's nowhere else more important for me to be in this moment than fully present with this client that is going through grief, or that is trying to figure out their next step after a divorce, or they're really, and when I'm teaching students that are light workers that are expanding their toolkit and their transformational ability, I don't get the opportunity to be out of balance, out of integrity, or somewhere else. Like I've got to show up professionally. So I'm really good at pulling my energy in and present so that I can be fully here. Then I take that hat off and it's like, okay,
Now
now
we
here
fall
comes my
apart
personal
where
life.
where no one sees me.
Right? Exactly. And like I really spend a lot of time in solitude because my energy is out with a lot of my clients, my students and staff. Like there's a lot of demands on my time and energy. So I spend a lot of downtime. I'm very, very particular about who I spend my free time with because I want it to be something that is replenishing, nourishing, supportive, safe, not drama, not chaos, not drunkenness. Like I'm not interested in having anything that really depletes my energy field. So I'm very mindful because this is my greatest resource. And for everybody listening and watching, your attention, your awareness, your energy is your greatest resource. And so I protect it, I honor it, and I'm very discerning about who has access to it. And when I feel depleted, or which happens when I'm in service at times, when I feel depleted, then like I carve out me time, replenish time in nature, relaxation, and stillness. But I can do breath work with 30 people emoting and releasing and feel really very clear afterwards. Hungry, just because I moved a lot of energy getting up and down and supporting 30 people and being fully 100% mentally focused and nowhere else. Like that takes a lot of I burn a lot of calories because I'm fully present. And so really afterwards I'm hungry for sure. But I've really learned over the years to have clear boundaries, and relatives and friends have been great teachers about all of that for me, because when I haven't had clear boundaries, or I've taken on their stuff, they've been great teachers for me about whether I'm not staying in my lane. And I thought they were the ones that were the energy vampires, not realizing, oh, I'm making their problem my problem. I'm volunteering myself as their coach without consent. Not that any of us have ever done that.
Never. I never do that.
In the
Ever. I know other people that do
you
that.
know, right? And family members and loved ones, we think we're entitled to do that, but yet it doesn't respect them being on their journey and learning their lessons in the time and in the way that their soul has already prepared for them. And if they're not getting it, then they're not ready to get it. And it's okay. I get to process my pain and my discomfort about that. That is on my side.
Right. That's so good. It's very present in my life. In the last 2 years, I've been working on my boundaries, and I didn't even know that I didn't have boundaries. I thought that it's just me being loving. Actually, maybe not.
And this is the thing, out of love is what motivates a lot of this. Hey, I don't want my relative to be in this addiction pattern. And boundaries doesn't mean a cold, armored up heart. I want to be clear. When you have clear boundaries, that actually allows your heart to open even further and open even more, because you're clear about where your energy is medicine or a poison, and what is yours and what is not yours.
Yeah, and that's healthier for both people. Absolutely.
It's healthier for both people. And in that they're going to be okay, even if it's not the way I would want them to be okay.
Yes,
That's for me to process, is that
that
they're
goes.
not okay the way I want them to be okay.
Yeah,
Like, okay, well, then that's my sadness and my grief and my disappointment. Well, that's for me to process. That has nothing to do with them, so that I can come, more loving, without judgment and without expectation about, come on, wake up, sober up, clean up, get this lesson. And that doesn't help anybody grow. And I realized I was making it worse, and that was not my intention. So my love was wrapped in judgment, or impatience, or discomfort. And I go, okay, I need to peel back all of those things and refine my love. So it's like, look, I love you whether you're sober or not. However, if you're not sober, we're not dating. I can still love you, but I also have the choice of what proximity is healthy. If we're sharing a bank account and you're at the racetrack every weekend and you're gambling the money away, hey, love you, and we're not sharing a bank account anymore. You can do that with your money. There's the boundary. And whether you get your finances sorted out is up to you. Have compassion for the pain that is underneath that gambling addiction or alcohol or sex addiction or whatever it is. And I can still say, but this is my space and I choose my proximity and my openness or closeness to that part that is not in alignment with me.
Yeah. So, Anhata, I usually do it in the beginning of the interview where I go into your core story, and I'm still very curious about who you are. I mean, a little bit about your childhood and how did you've been doing this incredible work for 23 years. So, how did you get into that, and what are some core moments in that story?
I think that my extended family was, very loving. I have a lot of fond memories as a kid. And my father had a lot of unresolved trauma, a lot. So his anger and abuse overflowed into my space often. And at the same time, there were lots of beautiful memories and lots of wonderful experiences. So, and that behavior was enabled. It was put under the carpet of like, oh, well, just, physical or emotional abuse was normalized. Nobody was saying, hey, this is wrong. And so growing up, it was very confusing for me. And although I loved him, and this is why we have the guided visualization to help heal the inner child. So go grab that. If there's a link in there because there's a little guided visualization to go to that inner child, that little girl self, that little boy self that maybe felt hurt or misunderstood or got lost in the shuffle of having lots of siblings or felt compared with other siblings or not enough or whatever, rejected or betrayed or hurt in some way, that we get to go and visit with that inner child and bring them home again and give them a safe space, love them in ways in which maybe our parents or whoever raised us didn't have the abilities at that time. And so for me, there was this contradiction where I'm like, God, I love you, but I don't feel safe with you. And I actually don't like you. And there's this contradiction that I had with my father for many years because there was so much love and support, but there was also trauma and not safety and fear, genuine fear. And so I stuffed that in because there wasn't a tool, a way, a process to cope with that. And it began to affect, my drinking and sexual expression and confidence and just an underlying anger that was just kind of there. And it would come out sometimes. And so then it would become destructive. Then it would become, I would get angry or lash out at loved ones. And so that created chaos in my relationships. And there was alcohol, of course, involved, which makes just adds fuel to the fire. And it wasn't until I was married and I was highly functioning, I was still highly functioning and great job and career and a lot of drive. But then I got to the point where I lost myself in the identity that I created with my marriage and 2 kids. I had twins. Love my twins. And that opened new parts of me that had been dormant to caregive for them. And my love and devotion for them made me not want to pass on that anger, that violence. I didn't want to pass that on to my kids. So I was starting to look at, hey, I don't want this pattern to repeat. And so I was starting to do this inner work. And at the same time, my husband and I were having a lot of marriage troubles. Not surprising because neither of us had great communication. Neither of us had great role models for healthy relationships. So we also didn't have the tools to handle challenges and the overwhelms of parenting without extended family help. And so there was a lot of pressures that we didn't know how to navigate. So that wasn't very healthy. And so different situations occurred, let's just say that, where I'm like, this, I will not have this. I will not have this. I got to the point where I was like, this is not okay with me, and I'm out. And it would take maybe just a handful of circumstances where I would say, no way, this is, I'm out. And that's one of those happened. And I wasn't gonna, I was absolutely not. And that took a lot of internal fortitude and courage to own my value and my worth and say, I will not be in a relationship that where I'm treated this way. And it took me a long time to get to that place, but my love for my kids and also for myself, I found that courage to say, I will not be treated this way. And I left the marriage. And there was so much pain and so much anger and grief because I was losing the family unit that I so deeply cherished. I grieved the loss of the family unit for myself and for my children deeply. And there was a lot of rage and anger, not only towards my husband, but also then unresolved from my father. So, and I'm like, I have all of this to deal with, and I'm a single mom with twins that are 3 years old.
Wow.
So I'm like, look,
Wow. How that's difficult.
I, yeah, I'm like, I better get together and I better get it together fast. And so for me, because I needed efficiency, I wasn't able, and I needed something that I could afford that wasn't going to be 10 years of talk therapy because I just did not have that time. I'm like, what is efficient where I can get at this quickly and learn the tools so that I can be sure that I'm not passing this on to my kids. And so that was my dark night of the soul where I dove into shadow work, and it was shamanism, shamanic emotional release techniques, a healer that someone recommended for me that lived about an hour and a half away, and so much rage, so much grief from private emotional release sessions, a lot of breath work. And at the same time, I was learning neurolinguistic programming and mindset. I was learning meditations. I was doing physical detoxing. I quit alcohol. I quit dairy. I quit all of these things that were toxic for my body. I was learning yoga and meditation. So I was literally doing massive accelerated chakra balancing in all of my energy centers, physically, emotionally, energetically, mentally, and spiritually. I dove in headfirst, and radical accelerated transformation was happening. My body was changing. My nervous system was calm. I was a lot more patient and positive and confident that I could figure this out and that I was happy to be free of all of this toxic energy. And it set me on this path of acquiring and learning tools for other people going through life transformations, because I wish I would have had more support at that time and tools that would have kept me from getting in this process in the first
Yeah,
place.
I love it. It's we usually teach what we have resolved within ourselves or what we're still practicing. And I really relate to your story because there are some parallels in my life story as well, as far as childhood and some failed marriage and all that. So yeah, beautiful. Thank you for sharing. It's really beautiful because when we have those dark nights of the souls, it's almost like we have a choice. We can fall into it and lose ourselves, or we can hold on to our light and do whatever we can to rise up like the phoenix. And I like phoenix stories, so thank you for being the phoenix in this story, and thank you for sharing your wisdom.
And that's literally at Shine, there's 14-foot golden wings on the wall at our sanctuary space, 14 foot, where you can stand in there. And it really is about, and we use this metaphor often, of rising and shining, rising out of the ashes, rising from the previous version of you, rising out of pain and oppression, rising out of addiction, rising out of playing small, giving your power away, stifling your voice. Like, yes, I've been and continue to rise and rise and rise into a new set of wings. And I think my kids were a big motivation for me, for that, to be like, look, I don't want just to be a bitter ex that is gossiping. I'm like, no, that's going to come back and it's going to hurt them. So I think their presence held me accountable to really work on the lower energy centers so that my voice was positive and inspiring, and that there's, between the addiction that runs in the family and divorce and different disease and like all this, that becomes life school. It's not sad or bad or wrong because it sent me on my path. That's looking at it here. And I found myself again. I'm in alignment 100% with my soul mission and passion and soul purpose. And so if that's how I needed to get here, then thank you, thank you. And I wouldn't understand compassion and forgiveness if it wasn't for my father. It's not from my great master teachers that embody wonderful unconditional love that I learned unconditional love from. It's from the person that stepped on my heart and hurt my little child self, like, to come to that place of forgiveness from that. For him, now I really understand the power of the heart and how much it has to grow and heal itself and our own inner wounds before you can ever get to forgive somebody else. If you have not done the inner child work, it'll just be lip service at the service. Oh, he did his best. Oh, they didn't mean it. And in that, you are denying that wounded part of yourself from healing, and you're actually not in the heart chakra yet. And the forgiveness is just lip service. It's not actually embodied. And that's the journey, to do the inner work. And that's why I love to help people through there, because then the beauty that comes from that, the phoenix rising, the flower blossoming, the star shining, like, it's so beautiful to, and such a privilege to hold space through that transformation. And that's why I love teaching it too, not only for individuals to have their own process, but light workers, healers, coaches, teachers, to have more tools to help other people through that process. That also really lights me up.
Yes. What are your 3 top tips to living a stellar life?
Know yourself. I'm going to say first, like, you've got to know not through what other people think of you or how other people see you, but know yourself. Know yourself. And I think that we're taught at a young age to please other people and achieve from outside validation. And I think that internal knowing self, because then from that place, you can make decisions about what is in alignment and what is not. So I would say know yourself, and also own your truth. Own your truth, because it might be that this relationship is ending. We'll own it. It might be that this is your career path and it's taking you away from what your mom and dad want you to do. Like, own your truth. If something doesn't quite feel right, it's because it's not quite right. And I would also say to own your sacred no. If you know your truth, then you've got to be really good at saying no, because there's going to be a lot of opportunities, a lot of distractions, a lot of expectations and demands that will be in complete conflict with what aligns with yourself, with what aligns and honors your truth. And so being really good at your sacred no, you can say it with kindness. Oh, no, thank you. And your hell yes, because that means you've got to take ownership of moving your life in the direction that you want it. And not everybody's going to like it, understand it, or respect it. But if you really want an up-leveled, thriving life, you have to know yourself, know your truth, and be able to say yes or no, even when other people are throwing a tantrum or throwing shade or judgment or hating on you, because it's not their life to live, it's yours. And
Beautiful.
you get to stop giving that the keys to the driver's seat to anybody else but yourself.
Right. And where can people find you?
Oh, I am, well, at shinesedona.com is the sanctuary here in Sedona. So come and play. There's wellness retreats and private retreats and goddess retreats and men's retreats, private healing sessions, and also my facilitator training is June this summer, or July this summer, and also in February, March. So I offer that 2 times a year. It's a 14-day immersion. I'm on socials at Anahata Ananda. You can also find us on socials for Shine Sedona. And do go get that guided visualization. Download that guided visualization, because it's a sweet little journey to just kind of heal and nurture your inner child. Maybe you haven't played in a while, and that's the connection with your inner child. Maybe they have a wisdom or a courage or a confidence that you used to have, or a playfulness, or an innocence, a creativity that has gone missing for a while. And so go do that guided visualization, because that'll help bring some inner alignment. So that's where people can find me.
Yes. Thank you so much, Anahata. And thank you, listeners. Remember to know yourself, own your truth, own your sacred no with kindness, and your hell yes, and have a stellar life. This is Orion.
Thank you, Orion, for everything that you're doing, for the mission, for the work that you do privately with your clients, and for being a voice for tools like this that other people can find this. Thank you for trusting your intuition and doing such a great service.
Thank you very much. Awesome. Thank you.